Next week is World Hearing Day, and about 48 million Americans suffer some form of hearing loss. And interestingly enough, the pandemic has more people realizing that might be them. So joining me this morning is Kory Castro, who co-owns Beltone West. Hey, Kory, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Nohalani. Thanks for having me on.
So first, talk to me about this. How did the pandemic let people know that they have hearing loss?
A lot of people realized that they were struggling to understand other people's conversations from having to wear masks, especially. So that's something that, people who maybe didn't realize that they had a problem before, it kind of came out over those first few months where they were just struggling a little bit more to understand what people were saying. And also lip reading. And lip reading will account for about 30% of speech understanding. So people who already had a little bit of hearing loss, other people are wearing masks, and so that drops the high pitch range down from what we have found. And then you take away the lip reading on top of that, and it's kind of just a recipe for a lot of frustration.
Fascinating, and I don't think a lot of people were aware. You also found not all masks are created equal.
That's right. So depending on the material of the mask, some masks are a little bit thicker than others, and so it will attenuate or drop the volume from certain pitch ranges, and typically that's going to cover the high pitch range, which is where you get clarity from speech, and that's where you hear the consonant sounds of speech. So a mask that is kind of like a cloth mask or the blue ones that a lot of people have been wearing will drop about 3 to 4 decibels from that high pitch range, which it's not a lot, but it can be definitely significant for somebody who already has hearing loss. The N95 masks, though, which are like the duckbill ones, the ones that doctors wear or hospital staff members wear, that'll drop it by about 10 decibels, which would be kind of like if you halved the volume.
So how do you gauge then at this point if it is time for you to go in and see a specialist, take a hearing test?
Well, I recommend anybody over the age of 55 have at least a baseline hearing test done. That's the age when it starts to kind of build up to the point where you might start having problems and not quite be aware of it yet, because hearing loss develops very gradually over time. If you're having to ask people to repeat themselves, if you aren't able to understand people in like a restaurant or the grocery store, if you notice that you don't hear the birds chirping or you don't hear your turn signal clicking in the car, that's usually a sign of high frequency or high pitch hearing loss, and that's pretty common for most people over the age of 65. There's some responsibility for people who are on the other end of the conversation. And so if you are talking to somebody who is hard of hearing and you're wearing a mask, it would be helpful to always face that person when you're talking to them. Slow down your speech a little bit so that it gives the other person time to comprehend the words that you're saying. I would talk a little bit louder, but not yell, because yelling can actually make it worse. And moving your mouth or your lips more to help enunciate your words a little bit better.
Kory, thank you so much for this insight as we look ahead to World Hearing Day next week. And if people need to come see you at Beltone West, then they know where to find you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.